So with the holiday season just around the corner, I know you're going to be on the hunt for the perfect little gift for your little one. But take my advice on this. You don't want to just go shopping and just pick up any little toy. You want to make sure that the toys you're going to be purchasing and investing in for your little ones are both age and developmentally appropriate. So stick around, get your notebook, get your phone, and take notes as we dive into my favorite toys for kids between the ages of 0 to 3. So diving right into my first group, I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite recommendations for children that are newborn up until 3 months of age. So when it comes to the first 3 months of life, remember that visual sense is going to be super important. Also remember, this is the time when you want to start introducing other types of sensory exploration. So things with different textures and even some different sounds. So my recommendations are as follows. I recommend a baby gym. I recommend baby mirrors. I recommend soft plush books. I also recommend soft rattles. And last but not least, I recommend the O-Ball. So when you look at these 5 recommendations, things that they have in common is that they challenge your child to start addressing some of those sensory skills. So they help your child with that visual sense, with tracking, with looking. They help your child with starting to learn about how different textures feel in their hands, such as the squishy ball or the soft plush books. They also help with different sounds. So some of those soft plush books are kind of scratchy, and when you shake them, some of them make little noises, or even some of the soft rattles are going to make a little bit of noise. Just remember, those first 3 months of life, really hone into your child's sensory processing. Next up are the kids between 3 to 6 months of age. So for 3 to 6 months of age, this is when things start to become a little bit more fun, because now your child is not just looking and tracking things with their eyes, but now they're starting to reach a little bit when they see an object, or they're starting to hold things a little bit longer, or they're even starting to transfer things from one hand to the next, especially as they get a little bit closer to that 6-month range. So when it comes to children between the ages of 3 to 6 months, here are my recommendations. I recommend textured balls, musical toys, board books, especially the softer board books and the board books that have different types of textures in the inside. I also recommend a tummy time mat and teething rings. So just remember, between 3 to 6 months, it's a continuation of that sensory exploration, and now some of those motor skills are also coming into play. So now we're going to talk about children between 6 months to 12 months. And I'm going to give you guys a little something special. We're going to do a little bit of show and tell here. Now, I have a lot of toys from children 6 months and up that I've personally collected working as a pediatric occupational therapist. So I'm going to be showing you some of those toys as we continue to discuss my favorites. So between the ages of 6 to 12 months, some of the things I recommend are as follows. So here we have a push, I call it like a push pop-up toy, because when you push the button, an animal pops up. So like that. So this is a great toy for this age range, because now your kids are starting to learn about cause and effect. So they're learning, if I push this button, then the animal is going to pop up. So it's not only great for that cause and effect, but it's a great tool to also work on those fine motor and eye-hand coordination skills. Next up on the list are shape sorters. So I actually have 2 different shape sorters. So I have this one. This is like the classic shape sorter that maybe a lot of you have seen already. And I also have this one, which is very cute. It's pretty much the same concept, but it has just 4 different shape holes instead of the other one, which has 5. Now, between 6 to 12 months of age, I don't really make it a big deal whether or not a child can get all of these correctly into the shape sorter, because they're not there just yet. But you can use this toy as a way to start introducing in and out play to your child. So for example, instead of worrying about can your child get the shapes correctly in each hole, you can just practice have your child putting the shapes in, taking the shapes out. So in and out. So these are going to be a great object for that. And now as your child starts to understand that concept of in and out, then you can add the other component to it, which is seeing if your child can actually put a shape into the correct hole. So usually the child is going to start with the circle because that's the easiest, and then you can kind of progress and add in more shapes for them to practice. Next up on the list I have is this classic ring stacker. So I'm not sure how many of you have ever seen this or played with this, but it's been here for a while because I played with this when I was a baby too. I think my parents played with it when they were babies too. So this has been around for so long, and there's so many cool skills that you can teach your child with this simple ring stacker. So starting out, if you're just introducing this toy to your child, basically you can just focus on having them to maybe take the rings off, because that's going to be a lot easier than having them to put it on. So I would start by having them to practice taking these off, and especially using 2 hands to pull it off. And then as your child starts to develop a little bit more precise fine motor coordination and eye-hand coordination, that's when you can have them practice putting the rings back on the stand. So this is another great toy that I recommend for children between 6 to 12 months of age. Next up on the list are blocks. So you can start by introducing a little bit of larger blocks, and then you can progress to these smaller little blocks. And the reason I like these smaller blocks for 6 to 12 months of age, especially as kids get closer to that 12-month range, is because now kids are really starting to perfect and be more precise with their grasping skills. So instead of just picking everything up with a full fist like this, now kids should start to isolate their fingers a little bit more, so they're picking up the blocks with their fingers and not just their full fist. So I would definitely invest in some small little blocks to start helping your child develop more precise grasping skills. And next on the list for 6 to 12 months of age are story block toys. So these are so fun because not only can your child start working on turning pages on their own, because the pages are made like really thick and they're kind of like that plastic material, so it helps your child get a very good grip on it. But they make noise and sing songs, and they're different colors, and some of them light up. So it's a great combination of that sensory play as well as that motor play. Now let's move into my recommendations for kids between the ages of 1 and 2. Now this is such a fun age as well, because now your kids are a lot more mobile. So first up on the list are puzzles. Now there are going to be 2 types of puzzles that I recommend. So when your child is first being introduced to a puzzle, my recommendation is that you start them off with the really large puzzle pieces with the really large knobs. So I will show you an example. So here is an example of a large puzzle with the large knobs. The reason I recommend these starting out is because it's allowing your child to understand that concept of grasping a large puzzle piece to not only pull it out, but push it back in. So when they're first learning about puzzles, these are the types of puzzles that I recommend. If your child is at the stage where their grasp has started to progress and get a little bit more precise, and you are now working on that pincer grasp a lot more, then my next recommendation for the type of puzzle I would recommend that you get are these puzzles. So this is another knob-based puzzle, except this one has knobs that are really small. So the reason I like this one is because now your child can grip the small little piece just like this. It kind of forces that little pincer grasp, and then they can work on that pincer grasp along with that eye-hand coordination. Now I'm gonna let you in on a little secret about this particular puzzle. But this puzzle is so cool because guess what? It has sound that goes along with it. And so for the kids that are really into sound, or the kids that really love like cars and trains and things like that, this is a great motivator for them to work on puzzles. So I'll show you an example. So I have a fire truck, and here's the fire truck here. So watch what happens when I put the piece in. super cool because now your child is also starting to learn what sound does a fire truck make? What sound does a choo-choo train make, right? So it's a great learning and educational puzzle as well. And don't worry, I'm gonna leave the link to all of my toy recommendations in the description box below. So my next recommendation for kids between the ages of 1 to 2 are going to be child-size markers or those jumbo crayons or even those dot markers. So I have some child-size markers here. These are so cute. They're called pipsqueaks. And I love these little pipsqueaks because they are perfect size for your toddler's hands, right? And usually kids are gonna start off with using this fisted grip like this. And this is like the perfect size to fit in their hands. And as their grasp starts to develop, they can continue to use these little markers that fit right in their hands. So I would highly recommend some pipsqueak markers or child-sized jumbo crayons, or I also have these, which are called dot markers. And I love the dot markers because you basically, it's a big circle and your child can grip it like this, and when they hit it on paper, it makes colored dots. And this is a great starter skill for kids who are just kind of learning about like that pen to paper, marker to paper concept. Next up on the list for my kids between the ages of 1 to 2, now don't get annoyed with me, parents, but banging toys are actually beneficial for their development. So I'll show you an example. So here is a xylophone, and it has this cute little stick that comes with it, and that's it. So a lot of children are going to really like that banging toys such as instruments or drums, but it's really good for that sensory processing of sound and also that eye-hand coordination and also cause and effect, because they're learning if I take this and I bang it, it makes a noise. So this is a very good tool to also have for your child. Next up for my recommendations for kids between 1 to 2 are gonna be board books. So board books are kind of these books that are kind of hard, the pages are kind of thick, and they are great because they're starting to help your child learn how to turn pages. And not only that, now you can start helping your child to use their index finger to point at different things inside the book. So board books are highly recommended for this age group as well. Some additional things that you should consider for kids between 1 to 2 are nesting cups, ball runs, balls that light up, pushing toys, or toys that allow for pretend play such as baby dolls, teddy bears, or large trucks. So now let's get into my recommendations for kids between the ages of 2 and 3 years old. Such a fun age, right? So my recommendations are as follows. So first up on the list are stringing beads. Stringing beads is gonna be an essential skill for kids. Not only does it work on their fine motor precision, it also helps with eye-hand coordination and bilateral skills, so being able to use 2 hands at the same time to complete a task. There are so many types of sets that involve stringing beads. They have the big colorful block ones, they have different animal ones. I even have like a neighborhood version of blocks, so I'm gonna show you. So here's an example of the blocks that I have. So this one has like trees and bridges and scooters and girls and boys and ice cream shops and garbage cans and all of that. And the reason I like this one is because the blocks are fairly thick, like very thick and easy for the kids to grab. Also, I like it because the end of the string is like this wooden piece. So it's a lot easier for kids to string versus using something very skinny like this. It's a lot easy, especially when your child is just learning. So you definitely want to look for something that has a thick handle on it to help your child string things a little bit easier. So I will definitely link some recommendations and different types of streaming activities in the description below. Next up on the list for recommendations for kids that are 2 to 3 years old are pretend food play sets, especially the ones that come with like the pretend knife where your child can start learning how to cut. So I have a few examples. So I have this apple, I have this banana, I have these grapes. I actually have a full huge bag of different types of food, but I won't get into that right now. But basically it comes with this cute little knife here, and you can basically teach your child how to use one hand to hold it and the other hand to cut the banana or cut the fruits. Oh. You can basically use this cute little knife in order to teach your child how to cut the foods in half. Now, for those of you who have children who are not at that stage where they're ready to use the pretend knife to cut, this is a cool toy still because it allows your child to work on that strength, which is what they're going to need anyway before they can really get into that cutting stage. So if you're still working on that strength, you can have your child practice by pulling the fruits and the foods apart because they have like this little Velcro on the inside, and then you can focus on having them to pull it apart. Next up on the list, I recommend toys that are going to encourage your child to use some more of that eye-hand coordination. So some of my favorite things for that are things such as pegboards. So here's an example of one type of pegboard. There are many out there. I like this one because the base is very soft. It's like almost like that foam texture. And these pegs are basically allowing your child to use their hands to push them inside the little holes here. And a lot of my kids really love what happens next. So usually I'll have the kids put the pegs in, and then when they're all filled, the kids will use their index finger to push and pop out all the different colored pegs. So another version of this is something called button art. So here is an example of button art. Now, button art is pretty much the same concept as pegs, but the inserts are a little bit different. So instead of the stick-like pegs, these are actually cute little buttons of various colors, and basically your child would find the colors that match and just really pop those in just like this. And it will create a picture. So I have a little fish here. This one is nice because it comes with so many different palettes and so many different pictures that you can use. This button art activity not only helps with that eye-hand coordination, that hand strength, that finger isolation, but also color matching. So now between 2 and 3, some of those cognitive skills, pre-academic skills are really gonna start being important. Next up on the list is Play-Doh. Now, Play-Doh is one of those things that obviously you gotta be very careful with depending on which child you're working with to make sure they don't put it in their mouths. But usually around 2 to 3 is when a lot of children have stopped mouthing things anyway. But if your child is one that still does it, it's very important that you be very careful with the Play-Doh. But using some type of Play-Doh or even using some type of putty. I love this putty because it also comes in different colors, which means it has different resistances. So some of the colors are harder than others, so it's a really good activity, not only for that sensory piece, but also for that strength piece as well. So a few bonus things that I recommend for kids between the ages of 2 to 3 are magnet tiles, which is great for that construction play, pretend play activities such as kitchen sets, ride-on toys such as little bikes and little toy motorcycles, and also outdoor play such as water tables or outdoor kid slides. These are all going to be super important and very essential for your child's development, and it's also going to allow them to have a lot of fun. So even though I walked you through toys that are age appropriate, just remember every child develops at their own pace. So you don't have to feel pressured to buy your child a toy just because it says on the box, oh, this is for a 2-year-old. But it's okay if your child is not ready to play with that item that is for 2-year-olds. It's most important that we meet the child exactly where they are, no matter how old they technically are. So we definitely want to pay attention to the age range for these toys, but most importantly, is it developmentally appropriate for your child? habits. And if you're having any concerns about your child's development, I highly recommend that you reach out to your pediatrician who can help you with those next steps for possibly getting your child screened or getting your child evaluated. Also, as a reminder, all the toys that I discussed and talked about in this video are going to be listed in the description box below. I hope this video has been helpful because I know the holidays are right around the corner, but even if you're not purchasing these toys for the holidays, these are perfect gifts for birthdays or even just because you want to continue to help your child to develop and make progress as much as you can. So with that being said, are there any toys after watching this video that you plan on purchasing for your child, or maybe your child already has and they absolutely love it? Let me know in the comments below, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Until then, bye!